In this video, we strive to remain spoiler-free, discussing only story and plot elements from the books relevant to what has occurred already on the show. When necessary, a spoiler warning with a countdown will be given.
Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca.
I'm Max.
And I'm the Geeky Hippie. Welcome back to WoT the Adaptation. We're the YouTube show that reviews adaptations from one form to another. This week, we continue our discussion of The Witcher Season 2 with episode 206, Dear Friend. I'm not sure how I feel about this one. How about you guys?
Mixed bag.
Yeah, pretty similar. I just don't feel that strongly about any particular thing in this episode. Like, there's nothing that I'm really strongly liking or anything that I'm really strongly disliking.
Yeah, and it very much so. I can't disagree at all there.
Basically,
also
a mixed
thought it-
dandelion.
Oh,
Yeah, that
that's
would have
it.
been-
That's why we don't like the episode.
It must be.
Well, not. I mean, again, I don't dislike it. It's
Yeah.
just like not. You know,
The
think
lack
I've
of
watched-
like.
Yes,
The lack
sort
of like.
It's just, and I watched it a few times because, like, the first time I had to like watch it in pieces. Like, I just wasn't getting through it, and then I watched it like a couple times on like quicker speed just to like refresh myself and stuff.
That's
But
what I was just doing.
yeah, but yeah, that's it. You figured it out. There's no Yaskier in this episode, and therefore it's meh.
And it opens weird. That beginning scene, I mean, the great shot of them coming down that little narrow, I don't want to call it canyon, but I guess it's a canyon, that little hallway almost between the rocks. Great location to shoot, but just that scene played so
Yeah,
flat.
I have thoughts about that, which maybe I'll save until we dive into
Okay.
the questions, because
What?
I have thoughts on that.
You guys want to just dive right in then?
Yeah,
Might as
so
well.
changes from the source material that we did like.
I'll go first. Weirdly enough, I actually really like the Elven storyline that was created for the show. Both the Elves training and the interactions with the MILF Guardians, and Francesca's birth, her child, that was, it makes the Elves more sympathetic, which they haven't been this season. I mean, they're starting to be, but other than Dara, most of the Elves were antagonistic from the get-go on the show, back when season 1, the edge of the world, end of the world, whatever. And then at the very first couple episodes with Fringilla and Yennefer being prisoners, the Elves were antagonists.
True.
And now they're switching over to being very sympathetic, protagonists, which I don't know if you want to call it a theme, but it's a quality that this Witcher series has. There's no real black and white. Everybody is a shade of gray.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I think that's true.
And I think this just feeds into that. It's showing us the other side of the Elves. And I also like Brian showing up at the Temple of Melitele, because that's probably my favorite scene.
Oh, okay.
Is the fight scene there at the end. And I'll talk more about that.
Interesting. Okay.
And it works with the story path the writer's room was created with, where he's at what times. That's kind of the only way, it's probably the best way to bring science back into the story. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I can't disagree about like the whole addition of, everything to do with the Elves in this episode. I think those were some of the better parts of the episode. I think those were important. So yeah, I agree with that. Max, what about you?
One scene that kind of stuck out to me, and I'm not sure we call it a change, is pretty much just Ciri's interaction with that one page boy.
Yara?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a change. Yeah.
Well, he's not actually a page, he's a student.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what the term was, but yeah, student boy. And like she's just screwing with him.
It's definitely, I mean, for one thing, it's a change just in like the age of the character. Like, I feel like Ciri in the book at that point, like she wouldn't have had the ability to do that just because she is like a younger and more innocent character at that point. So yeah, I kind of enjoyed that aspect of Ciri's character. I'll agree with that.
I gotta say, I didn't put the actor down, but the kid playing Yara, I can't remember Yara's at that point. It was perfect. He was spot on because Yara's from the books. He's later in the books. I don't think you guys would have met him in Up to Time of Contempt. I think he's after Time of Contempt. But yeah,
that's a change then, because I mean,
he's a little bit early, but that's where she meets him.
Okay,
you know, is at the temple. I just don't remember when they brought him.
I don't remember him, but like, I don't know. Yeah,
one of those names you hear, it goes through.
Yeah. So a change that I think I like is the way that Codringer and Fenn came into the story.
Yes.
And involving Istrid seemed like a good way to bring that in, because, you know, it's just it's strange that it worked, because it should seem like these scenes that were kind of like, what is this doing in here? Like, we don't really know what the point is, and it seems a little disconnected, but somehow there was enough like threads to the mystery there, and like it's there, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm going along with this. Like, I felt like it worked pretty well.
And not only does it make perfect sense for it to be Istrid doing that storyline, it actually it gives Istrid something to be doing at this point, because he's more than the minor character from the short stories. He's a series regular, you know. So they've got to.
He's a bigger character in the show, for real.
You know, and I just like, and I still like the character on the show. You know, I enjoy the character.
I'll agree. I like him more at this point. Like initially when you were saying you liked him, like in the early episodes, I'm kind of like, I don't really like him that much. But like at this point where he's like a little bit more developed as a character, yes, I definitely like him much more than I did in the show. I mean, in the book, which was not at all. Really,
it helps that he's not pining after Yennefer like he was.
Yeah, he's got other things that he gives a crap about. So
and he's well written and well acted. So
I feel like we've chosen kind of smallish things here, but you know, like we said, we don't necessarily have tons to talk about. You know, in the episode, that most it's kind of like, but on the dislike, so okay, here's a couple things. I think one of the main things that I don't particularly like about this episode is that all of the time we have in the Temple of Melitele is condensed to part of an episode. Like that we have Ciri like getting there and leaving there in the space of one episode, like less than we don't spend a lot of, I feel like we don't spend a lot of time there in the book, but there's the sense that time has been spent there. So, you know, Ciri doesn't just like pop in and pop out. Like, she does actually learn.
There's a significant amount there in the book that takes place there.
So obviously they did have to, I think, condense that needed to happen, but like this level of condensing, I mean, like, then you sort of question, like, I mean, other than, I guess, maybe meeting Nanika as a character, she kind of like shapes some of the other characters a little bit, like, but otherwise, like, why did we go there? It's not, I mean, it's a sort of way to like connect Yennefer back up with them, but that seems kind of random. So it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And then connecting that to like the early scene with Geralt and Ciri before they get there, you know, they're fighting a monster, and the main thing I think we get out of that is Ciri getting the sense that the monster didn't want to harm her. But did we really need that scene otherwise? Like, I mean, it might have looked cool and stuff, but like, I just don't really know what the point of that scene was, aside from that. Like, could we not have had her start, like, I don't know, do time skip if you have to, like, and start the episode with Ciri already there and having been there, so that some of what we get there is like she's already established there. We don't have to have so much introductory scenes to it. We can kind of jump in the middle of it, and it seems like there could have been another way to incorporate that Ciri gets that sense from a monster that it didn't want to harm her.
The other thing, and this is just a minor thing that I noted when I was trying to come up with themes, and it was like in one scene that I could see right off the bat was Ciri's gotten, the Ciri's gotten to trust Geralt and have more courage. I mean, that took a lot of courage standing up there on that cliff, that hillside, letting that big old beastie come flying at you, whether you felt like it didn't hurt you or not. That's still, that's a little disconcerting. It shows some development. She's not as scared as she used to be. She's getting braver and braver. And it's just a little tiny thing, but I mean, that we could have done with or done somewhere else too.
Yeah, I just think there are probably other ways to show those particular things. It didn't have to be that scene.
Yeah, I agree.
And I don't think that wasn't a scene in the books either. That was something they created.
That's entirely, Anything connected to the monoliths is created for the game and the show.
Yeah,
Nowhere
so
in the books.
Create something else, in my opinion, to accomplish those things, and then maybe have, like I said, if the episode began where Ciri had already been there for some time, it would just might have had a different feel to it, and we might have been able to get a little bit more out of some of those scenes.
So, sense that something was accomplished, and we've done time jumps. I mean, just watch Francesca's belly.
Yes,
she's got what, 6 kids in there maybe by now.
It kind of looks
like it.
Apparently not, but
yeah, apparently it was just the one. But my goodness. But so we've done time jumps. So that would have made sense, and it would have given, like you said, given different feel. I think I would say that different feel for me would be like a familiarity and a gaining of sense that she's gained knowledge in this time, so we can just give her through dialogue, let you know that she's learned this, this, and this, and this, or you see that she's learned this, this, and this.
It's just
so I think that would have been smarter.
Scenes in the temple, and like a couple of them I felt like were good scenes, but a lot of them I'm kind of like, I just didn't get enough out of it. I
did like Nenneke meeting Ciri though.
Yeah, I mean,
I think
the scenes with Nenneke, and actually the Nenneke and Ciri scene, like when they're lighting the candles, that was a good one. I liked that one quite a bit. So I mean, that was a worthwhile scene, and
I'll tell you, like that temple's gorgeous.
Oh yeah,
the set is just, that's everything I imagined when I read the book, was what that set ended up turning into.
That was really beautiful. Yeah, I agree. Quite gorgeous.
What do you think about that, Max?
What's that?
About the whole, of the way everything played out at the temple in Melitele, or any other things that you dislike?
I didn't mind the temple scenes at all. They were okay, I could say. Like nothing I disliked really.
Ringing endorsement.
Yeah, I mean, it's like nothing really stood out as great or horrible. They were just kind of like average. There are some parts that kind of dragged a little, but other parts were, action packed, so it kind of played into each other. As far as scenes I didn't like, there's nothing I really disliked. So, like you mentioned, the Chernobog monster scene. Like I kind of disliked it in some ways because like this kind of felt like a bad cold opening.
Yeah.
Like there just wasn't much there to have my interest.
Right. It wasn't powerful enough. Yeah.
I didn't mind the combat scene with it or the CGI, which was it was good for The Witcher, but not necessarily the best CGI I've ever seen either.
Yeah.
So it was an improvement on like season 1.
I still need somebody to explain to me why Battlestar Galactica back in 2004 had better TV CGI than most shows with huge fat budgets on TV these days have.
Don't know.
I mean, the only ones I've seen better is The Expanse and Game of Thrones.
All the really good studios are taken up by Marvel, by whatever DC is, and all that fun stuff.
Warner Brothers.
Yeah. Like, seriously, it's like a lot of the really good CGI studios are taken.
They're too busy now.
So they gotta go from top tier to second tier or third tier.
And the thing is a movie uses 5 or 6 houses at once. You know, TV show's probably going to use 1 or 2 at the same time.
And then they don't pay them and they go bankrupt.
Yeah.
So they make a new
Right,
studio.
right after winning the Oscar.
Yeah.
For Life of
And,
Pi.
You know, honestly, Netflix might have their own CGI in-house studio somewhere.
Yeah.
It honestly would not surprise me. I wouldn't be surprised if Amazon for Wheel of Time and all that other stuff has their own studio.
Well, I know they farmed some of it out. Really.
Yeah.
Things I didn't like. I mean, I fully endorse everything you guys just said. I don't disagree. My least favorite thing though was, because it just doesn't make sense, was Ryan showing up at Kaer Morhen. Ryan showing up at the temple is great, but showing up at Kaer Morhen, how did he know where to portal to?
The blood.
Yeah, I'm not on board with that
They
either.
didn't have the blood yet. He got the blood there.
But that's how they were trying to say is he followed the blood there or something. And
if he casts a spell from wherever he was to trace the blood, I think it more likely take him to Ciri than that vial that's diluted and and mutated blood. You know, it's been transformed.
And
it went through a transformative process.
He interrogated Jaskier, but like he doesn't know. He couldn't tell him, so that couldn't have helped him. Like, it doesn't.
The only people who know where it's at are the people Witchers want to know. And so far, we know on the show that's Triss.
Right, she's there, so she can't have anything to do with it.
In the books, Yennefer knows where it's at. She's been there, but that's been ignored so far on the show, which is no big deal.
And even if that were true, like their interaction was so brief. Like I don't see what that could have to do with it either.
Yeah. So nobody. Yeah, it
doesn't make sense. You're right. It's.
And the other thing I'm not sure if I like, or if I kind of dislike it, as much as I love Triss and as much as I love Tissaia, I wasn't happy with Triss leaving Kaer Morhen to go directly to Tissaia, and basically it felt like she was betraying Ciri.
Yeah, totally.
You know,
she's like dangerous, and that whole thing is weird. And that was like the end of the episode too, so they're putting a lot of weight on it. And everything to do with that vial also they put a lot of weight on. And like as I'm watching it, I'm just like, I hope this is important enough for the amount of emphasis put on it in this episode, because you made it like seem like a huge deal, so it better like pay off, or else why did you do it?
I still contend. Go ahead, Max.
I was gonna say 2 things. Is like I actually didn't mind the Triss sequences in this episode. Because compared to the books, it's a lot better than her having diarrhea on the road all day.
Yeah.
I did enjoy that that was one change I was going to mention. I did enjoy that her scenes were a lot better than the book scenes at this point in time.
She did kind of get the shaft in the books too. Let's be honest. Yeah.
She got a shitty position.
As far as the Witcher mutagen thing. That could be a nod to the video games.
Oh, okay.
Because there are, at some point in, I think, the second game, maybe even the first, they steal the recipe to make the grasses.
Okay, cool.
And they make some new Witchers.
Oh, cool.
And there's I believe the second game has a very big, bulky, muscle-bound Witcher kind of character. And I can't remember if they're actually a Witcher school, another one.
There is other Witcher schools. I just
can't remember if he was out of that one, but they were in one of the plot lines were like making other Witchers or something.
Yeah. I think there were 3 different schools. There was the wolf, cat, and I don't remember what the other one was.
And like he was fighting these other people that had basically Witcher abilities, and that was like a plot point of him fighting this guy like, oh shit, this is a Witcher. And like I don't recognize this guy and I should.
Max is also the guy who's here to remind us about anything to do with the video games.
Yes, so, and when Jen's on, she does that too. That's
true.
It's a good thing of having Max having played the game, because I do want that input from a game point of view.
Now, obviously, since Glenn has read further ahead, I don't know if any of that came from the books at all.
Yeah. Now, all I know is they've put a lot of emphasis on it in terms of the show. So they have to pay it off in some way in the show, or else it's kind of wasted like emphasis. That's so even if it is pulling from other areas, like it stands out a little bit in this episode. So anyway,
considering who he's working for and having access to make witchers. It's kind of a, oh
Ryan
shit.
Smith.
And he's not afraid to use it.
All
Yeah, I
right.
think we've covered like basically our feelings on changes from the source material, good and bad. So now we are moving on to, well, now I'm blanking. We always
How those affect or speed up or hurt the story.
yeah, okay.
We haven't really discussed that.
Okay, so do we have any thoughts on changes in how it's going to affect the story going forward?
I was going to mention that the Detective Finn agency thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if it really speeds it up, but at least it introduces them as a character for if, Geralt were to ever meet them.
Yes.
Yeah, well, he goes there in the books.
Yep.
We meet them in the books.
Yep, because I mean, Geralt was the one that saw him, not the other guy. And it at least sets up who they are, whether or not it sets up how they are in the books with how they operate with information, selling or not selling.
But definitely potentially useful characters to come back. So yes, it's good to establish them. Anyway, that was I agree with that.
And like I said earlier, using Istrid for it makes just a ton of sense because they're doing research. What does he do? He's a historian. He's a researcher. So it's like kind of right up his alley. So it's like putting the best people on that job.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it makes a lot of sense.
There was a comment from Yennefer in the show, and I can't remember what it was. And Glenn will know what I'm talking about, but I think it's a precursor to the Lodge.
The what?
The Lodge. Sorcerer Lodge.
Yeah, Sorceress, Lodge of Sorcerers.
I believe that one of the comments Yennefer made in here is like a precursor to the founding of the Lodge, which ties back into Triss and what's her face.
Well, somebody we haven't met on screen yet.
Well, no,
we've seen them on screen, but we haven't met them as a speaking role.
Yeah. I kind of want to say the way it's going is they might show how those people will found a lodge to counter the Brotherhood.
Yeah, but see, that all happens. You're knowing the lodge from the game, I'm assuming, because it hasn't happened in the book yet, because it's a result of what happens on Tanith when the mages, conclave, when they had the great gathering of all the wizards, and things did not go as anybody expected. That's like the biggest turning point in the books. I mean, everything in the story takes a turn this way because and the lodge is a direct result of that. And there's going to be a big old spoiler on this section. Caution tape still going.
And like I said, I feel like there is some connection with what Yennefer said and what Triss happened to kind of set up the base foundations of potentially going that direction. And
see, everything that's a fallout from that event is why I've been having such a problem with several character storylines, specifically Yennefer.
Mm-hmm. The changes with Yennefer's storyline, it is a bit concerning because, I mean, I don't want to jump ahead to the rest of the episodes of the season, but it's just everything's kind of really rushed, especially between her and Ciri, and there's flip-flopping, and it makes it harder to establish that. So
it's like bringing Daenerys to Westeros in season 2. It really is jumping the gun big time. That might have been fun to see, but no, that's just not right.
Yeah.
So
anyway, I don't have any other real thoughts on implications other than what I've already said, which is that this episode seemed to punch in importance certain things, like the conversation at the very end between Triss and Tissaia, and this vial that Ryan stole from Kaer Morhen. So again, I'm not sure how those are going to pay off. It just seems like they've emphasized it a bit much. So,
and I think this episode, like I said, this episode was one of the good ones for pointing out how, like I said, it's not black and white, it's shades of gray, because you really get to see that more and more, especially Yennefer's been Shades of Grey for a long time. But
Oh yeah, always, yeah.
she's been her position she's in right now. I do not feel. I feel for not see that as being a good position.
Yeah,
really
and
gotta suck.
it's a little clunky just because, like, you know, you get this very like in your face like thoughts from the deathless mother in her head, you know, and just everything is very kind of abrupt. You know, you have like she sees Geralt and they're just immediately like kissing.
Well,
Like, and then they have a conversation after. And like honestly, the scene where she like goes through the portal after Ciri and she's like, I wish I can do some actor shout outs or call outs if need be.
I got a couple here.
Do it.
First and foremost, Joa Ando as Mother Neneki.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I had totally forgot one time I watched this that Mother Neneki actually showed up. And I was complaining all through the time when we were doing season 1 that they didn't feature Mother Neneki because she's such a big part of The Last Wish.
Yeah, I kept wondering why you were saying that because like I hadn't like watched it like all of like season 2 at that point, but I was like, but I know they cast her, so like why are you saying that?
And I hadn't paid attention to that. I didn't do my due diligence looking up cast. But at Joa Ando, and I checked the name pronunciation, that's right. She was awesome. I also really liked Simon Callow as Codringer. I recognize that guy, and I looked up, and he's been in so many different things. We've all seen him in like a million different shows or movies. And Liz Carr, cool. Liz Carr as Fen, gender swapped Fen, I still think was brilliant, and she is so funny.
She was funny. I liked her.
She is funny, and she started a comedy. I think one of the troops she started a couple. One of them is a comedy troupe, or one or two of them she's in as a comedy troupe. So comedy comes natural to her. And Chris Folk kept me feeling creeped out by Ryan's. Chris Folk, I mean, the worse we feel about the character, the better the actor's doing the job.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So just like Lars Mikkelsen as Stregobor.
The only thing I'll say about him, like, I don't have anything bad to say about him because you're right. He does a good job of like playing this awful character, but it does go a little bit against your like Shades of Grey take because really, where's the gray with Ryan?
Yeah, with him there isn't, but in the books, there's shades of gray all around. There are some extremely close to black grays, like Ryan's or beep. Not gonna say it. That's who's like, yeah. Or Bonhart, who you guys have no reference to who Bonhart is, so that's not a spoiler. Bonhart is evil. But for the most part, everything else. I mean, there are a couple of iconic black characters. They're not black, but absolutely dark, vicious. But for the most part, even all of our heroes are shades of gray, at least.
Yeah. I think that's pretty normal, and I generally appreciate that.
Geralt is that hero who consistently through the parts we've been through in the books, he sometimes makes the right choice, but often he's wrong. And the author's not afraid to have his main titular character of the series wrong. And Geralt frequently is wrong and makes the bad choices. But I think that's part of the charm for me of these books.
Yeah. The main thing where I think like Geralt is wrong, at least in what I've read so far, is just his idea that he can just be neutral, that there's a way to just like opt out of making moral calls when you're involved in a situation. Like
going right back to the lesser evil.
Yeah, I think that the story kind of shows that like you actually can't do that. So like you think you are opting out of making a moral call, but you can't when you're involved in something. It just doesn't work. So I think that's where he's most.
My head's just exploding with things that I can't say until we're talking about the whole series.
I'll shut up now.
That's okay, because I've got this thesis about the character, and I just can't explain it without a spoiler, like a massive spoiler alert, like blocking you guys from hearing.
Hopefully, I'm not saying something completely ridiculous, but
No,
that's
you're
the
not.
sense that I have
You're
so
not.
far. So anyway, as far as any other, yeah, I mean, I think mine was just Joa Endo as well, because I enjoy her as an actress so much, and yeah, she just kind of really like has wonderful screen presence no matter what she's doing.
That's the first descriptor I used was presence, and then gravitas, an inherent feeling of calm and compassion.
Yeah.
She was Mother Ninnity.
Yeah.
From the moment she opened her mouth, from the moment I saw her, and then it just,
I
yeah.
enjoy her.
Max, who did you really like?
Well, you already mentioned Liz Carr.
Yes.
I'll have to give props again to Freya because of the one scene.
Yeah.
And was the boy Gage?
Yare. Oh, Gage is
Jare?
Gage is Francesca's brother.
Okay.
The elf,
So
the
it'd
elf with
be,
the non-elf name.
So Jare was Joseph Payne.
Okay. Yeah, he was good.
And I give him props for at least not bursting out laughing.
He fits very much for the character. So you actually get a decent amount of him. Especially I like so yeah, all right. I can't roll my R's.
But yeah, those would be my shout outs for best actors in this episode.
What'd you think of, Rebecca?
So the other person I thought of, and because it's not just this episode, but it's kind of like been subtly building for me throughout this season, is Fringilla. Because I think in season 1, I was just kind of like, she's just taking up space most of the time as a character. Like, I don't get enough like depth from the character in season 1. But in season 2, I feel like you can point to a lot of like really nice subtle acting that she is doing, where, you know, she's just reacting to things that people are saying to her, but you can read a lot in her face. And so I think that is nicely done.
The moment with her,
go ahead.
The moment with her that stands out for me is when she comes out of the birth room.
Oh, I knew I was going to say that.
Elf was born today, and that smile on her face was just, I don't like the character. I haven't liked them, but she smiled, and I just like, I felt for her, and it's just like, and I felt for all of them, because they've been doing, in my notes, I wrote this, they've been doing a great job of making Fringilla and Francesca, the last few episodes, sympathetic.
Yes. Both characters who we wouldn't necessarily find them terribly sympathetic to begin with, like going into this, but yes, they are adding, that's where like the layers and those shades of gray come in, and so they're doing a good job with that, and the actress is doing a good job. And that moment was a standout moment where she said an elf was born this night, and you just feel that she has joy in that as well, even though, you know, it's just that she's developed this bond. And so that was a really nice moment.
I also did like Eamon Farron's little moments with Miss Fringilla as Kair this episode, when he gave her the letter from Emir. I liked it. I liked his performance. He's a nothing character to most people, well, at least to you right now still, but he's the actor is just really, I like what he's doing, even though it's not exactly the Kair from the book. The Kair from the book's a lot younger.
All I know is in this episode, I was like, man, what a dick in that one scene. And so
the fighting?
Yeah, the fighting scene.
Yeah.
So I guess, you know, if that was the point, which I guess it was, then well done.
The one I liked was that one with him and Fringilla on the balcony, the balustrade.
That was a pretty good scene for both of them,
the only thing I would mention on like the Fringilla and Francesca part is that it really is just build up for the next couple episodes.
Oh yeah,
because it's all build up.
There's the three of them. I was just about to mention Anya Chalotra as Yen this week. She was really good. I like the subtleness she played of, Geralt, I have to betray you and steal your child's prize because I need my magic back. But she hid it, but you could see it. I swear I saw it in her eyes the entire conversation, every time she was talking with Carol after she realized Siri was who she was after. I just really liked Anya's performance and stuff. But the three of them, of Yennefer, Fringilla, and Francesca, they're all tied now to the Deathless Mother. And you have to make them sympathetic so that whatever happens to them in this storyline matters to you as a viewer.
Sure. Sure.
Going to a potential theme thing is we have 3 again.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Trinity.
Maybe we should move on to talk about the theme then.
Look, did anybody have a worst actor this
unless
episode?
anybody- I don't.
No?
Maybe
Okay.
the monster.
Yeah, that could have been.
I just didn't believe
Alright.
its roar. It sounded very. It wasn't present.
But it wasn't convincing. Okay.
Yeah.
This is what I did for my notes on trying to find themes, and some of them were like in 1 or 2 scenes at most.
Well, let's let Max talk about the 3 again, or
Yeah.
whatever else you want to talk about.
And I'm going last, so
Well, I mentioned 3 again as a theme from the Trinity thing.
Mhm.
And as you saw, they were trying to build sympathy for all 3 characters,
Mhm.
trying to build something for a big letdown. Yeah. How about that?
Yeah.
they don't do that kind of shit in movies and TV. Everything goes just right for the characters, right?
Yeah.
Oh wait, I must not have been watching TV the last 40 years.
I mean, if you ever watched that show Silicon Valley, that's
No.
the whole the formula for the show.
Set up so that everything that happens just hurts even more.
It starts like at they're at the bottom, they get really good, and then they crash hard.
Wow.
And in every season's like that, they crash harder and harder.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely a bit of that in this episode.
Yeah.
Anything else, Maximus?
I mean, there's a little bit of loss. We have Roach. Someone
yeah.
Glenn completely
like,
didn't even
forgot
talk
about
about
that
at all is Roach.
R.I.P. Roach.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Roach.
Yeah.
How
Roach
many
is
people
no Pips or
got
Bella,
killed in the temple?
4 guys got killed in the temple. I didn't see the villains killing priestesses or anybody else.
I don't know if did the boy live or did he?
I'm assuming
he
he
get pummeled.
I'm assuming he's going to live because
Okay.
he has a role.
I
He
didn't
has a
know that's why I thought he
storyline.
was dead.
Yeah, he has a storyline in the books,
Okay.
but it's not really affecting anybody else's storyline, so it's something that could be eliminated.
Yeah.
But
I
it's
definitely thought he was dead, and I was like,
fans.
what is this? Really, was there a point? Because, anyway, but maybe you're right. Maybe he's not dead.
Whether he's dead or not, it's still kind of lost for Ciri because she had a kind of a friend.
Yeah.
She loses them. She loses her friends in the temple, like Nenica. She can't see them anymore after this, or at least not for a while. Vesemir has his loss of the possible making new Witchers.
Yeah.
And it's 3 losses there.
Okay.
3.
I mean, I struggled also with trying to really come up with a strong or persistent theme in the episode. I mean, the things that kind of stuck out to me more strongly were anything to do with hope and how that can affect people. But I mean, it's sort of like a little bit of a flip side of what you're saying about loss, Max, because those 2 things kind of go hand in hand. Like, we got a little bit more hope in this episode, but maybe that's going to potentially lead to loss of hope.
Funny that the Deathless Mother all have hope.
Yeah. Right. Like Yennefer's got this little bit of hope that she can get her magic back. And obviously, I think that we saw it most strongly with Francesca and Fringilla getting a lot of hope in this episode. But then, we even see that a lot of that is tamped down pretty quickly for Fringilla when she finds out that the White Flame is coming.
Yeah.
And all that. So yeah. So I feel like there are the seeds of hope, and then I don't know, this sense that a little bit of hope can also be dangerous. I would say, I mean, to me, that was what was kind of a little bit crazy to me was the idea that, oh, there's one elf being born, and like immediately that they're like, oh, well, what happens when they're like self-sustaining and they don't need us? Like, that's a huge leap,
Yeah, it
but
was.
huge. So it's kind of crazy, but on the, it's that totally really delicate shift in power, that like this tiny little shift in who has the balance of power, who might have the upper hand, can have a huge impact. So I feel like there's a bit of that in there, but I really feel like that's mainly coming in the like in the Nilfgaard and Elven story.
Yeah.
I don't really see as much of that in the rest of it. Like I said, maybe a little bit with Yennefer.
Anything else?
That's it, really.
So attack on my page. Obviously, racism is bad. It's always there. Even Kay here, who we thought was an asshole since the first season, said the way the elves are treated is despicable. So, it's there.
Yeah,
purpose.
he's a jerk and he thinks so. Yeah.
Purpose is a theme for a couple of characters. For Kahir and Fringilla, it's finding Ciri and serving Emir the White Flame.
Mm-hmm.
Because even Brett pretty much says it. Return to my original job here. Let's find the Cirilla. For Francesca, she's got hope and life. Hope was mentioned, but life, because she gives life back to those wilting flowers, which I thought was a really nice sequence in the episode. I actually kind of think that one's up there with the others for some of my favorite scenes in the episode. And she pregnant and has the kid in this episode. So, there's even more of the life of the generation of life. Trust, I think, is a little bit in there from Lydia there at the beginning, trusting whether or not she's going to trust Ryan to tell him who her boss is. Well, I can tell you who her boss is, but I'm not gonna. Geralt and Ciri trusting each other, like in that fight. Ciri had to really trust that Geralt was going to come in from the side and take out that beastie monster. She stood there waiting for it, like fate. And trusting others, like whether or not to trust Neneke or whether or not to trust Yennefer, which is just sad to have to say. Istrith, trusting of Codringer and Fen to tell them what he's really looking into, because that's not a topic that he would get away mentioning around the Brotherhood or around various, political leaders. That's no, you shouldn't be looking into that. So he trusted them. That leads me to knowledge, which you've got Codringer and Fen storing a lot of knowledge.
Big tools?
Yes, exactly, because Yare's got the big tool of knowledge or gaining knowledge. Even Ciri and Neneke and Geralt, she has to learn what's going on with her and how to control it. That's a new knowledge, and Geralt mentioned he's a graduate of the temple. He's studying there. So, like I said, I'm grasping, but I'm finding little tiny bits sticking out of the ground, like little tiny sprouts. Not a full plant of a theme, but this is trying to grow. So love obviously with Geralt and his dear friend Yennefer. I don't think that got past Ciri. I think she got what that meant right away. Ciri's a little smarter and on the know that she would have been previous season when her character was like in theory only 12, and now she's like 14. That's a big change. Watch out when you get that age, trust me. Hope, I did mention them. Go ahead, Max.
I was gonna say betrayal. It's a possible 3.
Yeah. Betrayal.
Got Yennefer, was it Dara, the elf?
Yeah.
And there's a third. I'm trying to think who the third would be for betrayal.
Yennefer and Dara. No, I'd have to think about that.
Yeah, I was gonna say something, but it's really it's upcoming, so it's
Mhm.
not really.
Go ahead. I'll put a spoiler up. Go ahead.
Well,
If it's for
I just feel like we're being set up for, because it's Fringilla, really. She's in that, like, where she's between these two. She's between Nilfgaard and the Elves. Like, she is the person who is in the middle of this alliance. Like, it really all comes down to her. So that's being set up to where, like, she's not going to be able to continue to.
Cahir's already hindering her.
Right,
You know,
absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
and she's really found a purpose with this. You know, it's almost like she found a new purpose other than serving just the White Flame. Just
right.
Especially with the sheer joy on her face when she told the elves in the hallway. That really hit home to my heart. I'm telling you. And I got to give props to the actress. I'll put her name on the screen and her picture. She really did rock it lately, you know. And I've neglected to mention her on my list of characters who I've. Yeah, she was. I have to say she was good.
I do wonder if the third betrayal could have been Vesmer. Whether, like, when he lost the vial.
Triss is betraying Ciri, talking to Tisea.
Okay, yeah, there you go.
So there's the three betrayals. Wow. We're going to have to watch. Max, you keep your eye open for those threes. Man in the chair, watching for threes. Yeah, I mentioned hope, you know, for the elves with the new child and the Alliance of Nilfgaard. Again, hoping to get her chaos back, but it's really painful to watch what she's going to have to do to Geralt. And it just hurts. I just hate to see her have to do that to Geralt.
Oh, and well, Geralt gets maybe a little bit of hope too, because, you know, he sees Yennefer again and there's a little bit of reconciliation there.
Yeah. Where was Karen going? Was that when they were at the dragon hunt? That was the last time they saw each other, I think, wasn't it?
I don't remember that that's what it was called, but it must be that, yeah.
I recognize the name, but I've listened to all the books twice, if not three times, at the short story books. So the name just there, but I can't place where it is. I'd have to look it up. And what happened there. So, yeah, I really had to pick at it to find these little tiny bits of theme sticking out of the ground. And you pull them up, there's not really much of a root system in them. But they're there, you know, to some extent or another. So, any other thoughts or comments, you guys?
I don't think so.
Looks good. Max, starting to say something?
Oh, we're going to get more Dandelion, I believe.
Yeah.
Yay. Awesome. I really like Dandelion. I talk shit about him. We finished another episode of The Witcher, Season 2.
To go.
This was 206, Dear Friend, and now we are coming up on the penultimate episode of Season 2, episode 207, Olaf Mir, Meir, however you want to pronounce that. That's the Deathless Mother, if I remember that. And the Elder speak. Thank you for watching. Come back next week. Give us a like and a subscribe. Have a great night, day or morning, and don't forget to be awesome.